You are listening to Community Comment. Here's our host, Kevin Haugen.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome into today's Community Comment. Again, I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It's my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio our guest on the program this afternoon. Joining me, as he does every third Wednesday of the month, our guest here on Community Comment today, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. Sheriff, thank you so much for taking some time out of your incredibly busy schedule to join us here on Community Comment today.
Pleasure to be here, and it's always a great opportunity to interact with the public. So happy to be here to do that once again today.
We'll have a lot to dive into today, but as always, if you have a question for the sheriff here on Community Comment today, you can reach the program at 887-9595, or you can text 885-4446 to get into the program here this afternoon. We'll dive into Halloween safety. That's right around the corner, too, as well as car and deer crashes. That's upticking here now as we get into the colder months. Also, peel back into some OWI arrests, what law enforcement looks for, as well as a hiring opportunity with the Dodge County Sheriff's Office. We'll discuss that also in just a little bit. But at the top of the program here, I want to start off on a more recent newsworthy note. Sheriff, a press release came out last week or 2 weeks ago, I want to say, not too long ago, highlighting something that was mentioned a couple of times that you had been told from county staff to relay to the public regarding drop boxes. Just sort of walk us through kind of that whole situation, where to start with that, and then what led to that press release coming out, essentially updating and correcting comments that were made.
Sure. Basically, what happened was early on in this election cycle, right before the primary elections, I was informed that we had 3 towns that had drop boxes in the county, and I was informed that those were the only 3 that the county was aware of. And so knowing that we've had concerns, and these concerns aren't just by a couple of people. I would say that really about half of our population across the country have been concerned about ballot drop boxes, and is there potential for illegal activity there? And when you have the potential for illegal activity, any kind of illegal activity, it really falls to law enforcement to make sure that we have processes in place to investigate, to ensure we have a good system in place, and that fraud and illegal activity can't take place. Regardless if it actually takes place or not, we have to be ready, and we can't sit on our hands and wait for illegal activity to take place. We need to be ready so that if there's allegations, we can investigate it to either prove that there is illegal activity or is not illegal activity. And that's our job as law enforcement. When we receive a complaint, which we do get complaints, we need to be able to investigate. So I reached out to those 3 clerks. Those 3 clerks all were telling me that they've got this utility box, or not utility, but payment box that they use for various types of payment through the year. And in the past, when drop boxes were illegal, people would still drop election ballots into them. That wasn't legal. They'd still have to call these people back in. They'd have to come in and verify who they are and turn them over because that ballot drop box was not legal. They wanted to avoid that, so they were talking about just making those drop boxes. It wasn't something that they were really advertising and really were going to make available as publicly known that these are drop boxes. But if people did that, it was available. We had the conversation, and I sent them some suggestions on what they can do to ensure they are in compliance with the most recent Supreme Court ruling. And that Supreme Court ruling says, and is active today, that you cannot use a drop box unless you are actively dropping it off for you and you alone. You can't do it for your spouse, you can't do it for your children, you can't drop off for anybody else. That's what our current Supreme Court law is, unless that person is confined and can't get out of their home. So I gave suggestions. I told those clerks, it's up to you. It's your decision on what you want to do. I wouldn't do that, but it's up to you. And here are some recommendations to make sure that you have proper security in place, including proper placement of cameras, retention of that video so that it can be reviewed. Because some places don't have retention processes in place to make sure they maintain it. They don't have ordinances in place. You may not know this, if a municipality doesn't have an ordinance in place for the retention of their video, they're required to save it for 7 years. And many of our municipalities, I don't think understand that, because I found where they aren't maintaining the video for that long. And it's a very long time to maintain video. So I gave them recommendations on what they needed to do to have proper retention, have proper videos, to make sure that they're secure. And all three of them made the decision on their own that they didn't want to proceed with the drop boxes. It wasn't worth it. I made some statements to the public to that effect, that they weren't going to have drop boxes. I wasn't aware of any others until this last week. I found out, I believe it was Sunday night or Monday night last week, that there were a few that are being used, again, for the same reason. That next morning, I found out, I did some research to find out what happened, and I put out the release to the public saying, I was given bad information. I'm correcting that information to the public. There are some in the county, and I hope they still use those same recommendations to make sure we have a secure voting system, because regardless of if there is a fraud or not, the perception of fraud still has an impact on the perception of our elections. And I was asked last week by a reporter, there is no evidence of it. Well, there's maybe no evidence that we've seen in court. A lot of the court cases were thrown out because of lack of standing, which was interesting. There was a lot of cases where we didn't have adequate equipment in place to do adequate investigations. I saw video of drop box stuffing out there. I mean, I saw it. But there was no evidence that could be brought to court that we could hold somebody accountable for it. Just because somebody gets away with breaking the law doesn't mean it didn't happen. We've had really good processes in Dodge County. We've had very little illegal voting happen in Dodge County. But I'm here to tell you, illegal voting took place in Dodge County, and we prosecuted people for illegal voting in Dodge County. There are people who try to do that. It is our job as the government to make sure that we have processes in place so those types of things can't happen. Even though there are drop boxes, and initially the information I gave out was later inaccurate because of the information that was given to me, I still stand by the fact that we have to have proper processes in place. The clerks take care of collecting the ballots, of counting the ballots. But if there is an allegation, if there is a complaint that there is illegal activity that goes on, law enforcement are the ones responsible for doing the investigation. So we need to work with the clerks. And I've had people tell me, Sheriff, why is it your responsibility to get in and take care of monitoring elections? I'm not monitoring elections. I'm not monitoring ballots. I'm putting processes in place so that if and when an allegation is made to law enforcement that there's a crime, that I can properly investigate it, and I can prove or disprove that illegal activity took place. And I stand by that decision.
In cases where if all the processes are in place, the security, surveillance methods are set up, and the way to store those video surveillance methods are set up to the point where you could do an investigation thoroughly and make sure that illegal voting did or did not happen. If all those things were in place the way they're supposed to be, are you in favor of drop boxes?
I think there are still some things out there that need to be ironed out. A camera doesn't prove who somebody is. I think we need to have some bipartisan efforts in the legislature that we can get 80 to 90% of our electorate there, so that they can feel confident that our elections are secure. That's not there right now, and we have a 50-50 tug of war out there. Half the people think, yeah, they're fine, just leave them alone, and half the people think, I'm not there. We need to have bipartisan legislation to get there, so that maybe someday we are there. But there needs to be guidelines, restrictions set in place. This is what you shall do to ensure that these are secure, to ensure we're complying with the Supreme Court's rulings. I don't know if I'm prepared to say if all of those things are in place, I'm there. I think we need to have more than that to make sure that we can bring the public along, so that government can show that, okay, we are concerned about more than just our side of the aisle here. We need to have most people on board with these are secure, we are comfortable with it. If we're 75-80% of our public are there that say, yeah, these are secure, well, maybe we can get on board with it. But I think we have more work to be done, and we need to have legislation in place mandating that every clerk do it the same way, and we don't have each clerk doing it a little different way.
We're chatting with Dodge County Sheriff here on today's Community Comments. Again, the phone numbers to get onto the program, 887-9595, or you can text 885-4446 if you have a question for our guest today, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. Moving on here on our program today, only a couple of weeks away from a popular holiday that brings out a lot of young kids in the area, and there is potential risk for some safety things that is important to pass along some notes to parents out there who do have kids that are planning on going out and trick-or-treating for Halloween. And Sheriff, what are some important safety tips and reminders that we want to share with our audience today?
Well, first you got to watch out for all the ghosts and the goblins that are all running around out there, and it could look like the apocalypse or something with all these kids running around in these really cool costumes. Every year I see some new costumes that are just amazing, and kids have so much fun, and adults even have a lot of fun. Sometimes too much fun. What's interesting before I get to the safety tip is every year I always talk about it that I go out on New Year's and I try to help keep the highway safe. It's getting to the point where Halloween weekend, that weekend it's either usually just before or just after, where everybody goes out and parties, that's becoming more busy, there's more activity for law enforcement that weekend than there is New Year's. It is a really popular holiday, so adults and kids alike. It's this time of year to like to talk about the kids. I want to talk about the parents a little bit too in a minute, but the kids, of course, are going to be out during trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating dates should be out or out soon, and a lot of great events like the trunk or treats that happen. Mm-hmm. Those are really, really nice, and parking lots are a lot safer environment. You know the people. Highly recommend and encourage those. They're not walking out in traffic, but you still have trick or treat. You got kids that are crossing the streets. You got the potential for people who want to take advantage of those kids, maybe parked along the streets. You got to pay attention to those things. You have individuals who sometimes want to put things in candy which may harm individuals, which is never good. So a few tips for all of our parents. Of course, number one is make sure you keep a close eye on your kids when they're out trick-or-treating. Watch where they're going. Make sure they're not darting out into traffic. If you're able to dress them in bright colors for a Halloween costume, maybe you want to, dress them as a DPW worker. Might be a great opportunity for you to keep them safe in a high visibility vest. But making sure that they're visible, not darting out between cars. Only cross the streets at crosswalks. Don't be jumping back and forth on the streets. And stay in groups is great. As far as the candy goes, make sure you're checking the candy. You don't take anything that's not prepackaged. Those handing out candy, while it might be neat to do some home baked goods and things like that, those things make parents nervous. So do the prepackaged candy. Check over the candy, make sure it looks okay, and just make sure there's nothing that looks like it's been tampered with. When in doubt that it's been tampered, throw it out. Just get rid of it. We got to be real careful to make sure that we protect our kids in those areas. Make sure you're sticking to the trick-or-treating hours. Don't go to the places that don't have the lights on. Some really neat things that we've got in place is our Department of Corrections, the Division of Community Corrections that watch your probation and parolees. They won't allow them to put any decorations out. They won't allow them to turn their lights on, and they do home checks during trick or treat. So it's a great service that they do. So don't go to any homes that don't have the lights on. You don't know who lives there, and sometimes they're restricted from even participating, which is a great thing when they're not supposed to be engaging with children. So a lot of great things when you're out driving around. Adults, be careful. Don't drive real fast. You should be at the speed limit anyway, but under the speed limit's best when you got trick-or-treaters around, because you never know when that kid might dart out in front of you, and you don't want to be that person that struck somebody who's just trying to get some candy and have a good time. So be real careful when we're out and about during trick-or-treating.
Well, go ahead.
And then the last thing is adults. I talked about it getting real busy for us in the evenings. It's usually that Saturday night, and I think this year is just before. I forget when the bars generally have their big Halloween celebration. I'm sure it's when we have Best Damn Fest. The Fall Downtown Fest. Thank you. They got all the casket races and things like that here in Beaver Dam, and they got other festivities around the county. Making sure that you are responsible Remember, just because it's Halloween doesn't mean you can drink and get behind the wheel of a car and drive. We will arrest individuals for operating under the influence. We do tend to have more incidents, domestic type incidents, because alcohol is involved, and other incidents out and about too, because there's a lot of people in smaller spaces. So we get very busy that night, and we ask everybody's patience, ask for everybody to be smart, be responsible, and especially when it comes to the alcohol, and just be real responsible with what you consume and what you're doing afterwards. So those are my tips.
For the younger, potentially trigger, maybe not the younger ages, but maybe the in between middle school, late elementary school, who, you got some kids who they want to go out with friends and they just want to have it without the parents, no chaperone. Is there a buddy system, or is a young adult who should go along? Is there a recommendation for parents maybe to have a conversation with those kids and say, hey, listen, I know how much you want to do this on your own and, be independent and go out and have fun, but there is still the importance of having an adult there to make sure everybody stays safe and nothing wrong happens.
Everything Kevin just said. That's about it. Perfect. Buddy systems are fantastic. I think the biggest thing is for parents to set guidelines for their children. You know they're going to be out there. They want to be out there on their own. Set rules. Make sure they follow those rules. And if for some reason they're not following the rules, then they need to be held accountable for that to make sure that they understand they can't be doing these types of things. So it really comes down to the parents having that good conversation. Eventually you have to let your kids sprout wings and fly on their own and sometimes fall, but you got to be there to pick them up. But you have to set those guidelines and ahead of time. Just don't send them out there and say, have fun. Here are some things that you need to do to make sure that you can stay safe and other people stay safe as well.
For the sheriff's office, I know that a lot of times cities have their own police departments who have their own plans for enforcement during special holidays, like the Halloween coming up here. But for the sheriff's office, is there any unique patrols or anything that you do differently to help cover rural areas in Dodge County or areas that you are having more of a law enforcement presence in? Is there anything unique or different that you do with your patrol deputies to ensure that Halloween is done safely?
Well, we have a number of areas that aren't necessarily covered by police departments or they're part-time police agencies, and so when we're aware of, we become aware of those times when we have the trick-or-treating, and we try to get into those areas and make sure that we have a presence there. We also now have contracts in Reeseville and in Lamira, so our contract deputies are usually, as long as we're able to make it work out, they're usually in those areas trying to make sure that we've got a visible presence there during those times, and really it's supporting those other agencies then. But there's a lot of smaller cities and villages and unincorporated areas that have kids out in those areas, and so it's important for us to be in those communities while the police departments are managing the cities.
We're talking with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt here on Community Comment today. Also, Halloween, October, November, this time of year is a popular conversation for law enforcement. Another popular conversation I feel like we have, even with members of police departments that come in, is highlighting the importance to stay vigilant when driving out on rural roads. Don't necessarily see a whole lot in the city, but really keeping your head on a swivel for deer when driving out on rural roads, and making sure that you're not flying by and a deer jumps out and you collide into that deer and or swerve. There's a lot of safety things that we want to highlight, but Sheriff, I'll turn the mic over to you. What are some of the things that we want to highlight and note when it comes to making sure that drivers stay safe this time of year?
It's here. The deer are running. Just because you're in the city doesn't mean you can't have a deer running around in the city. That does happen from time to time. We usually don't have many crashes, but every once in a while we see a deer running around, and those crashes can happen in the city. But the biggest thing is in the mornings, right around dawn, and in the evenings, right around dusk, is the time when they are running the most. And we're starting to see more and more of it. We're starting to see these crashes start to happen, and so we really want to stress to people, pay attention. Number one is make sure that if you see one, assume there are more, because they like to run in groups of 3 or 4 deer. We've had so many times where you miss the first one and you carry on, and a second one jumps out in front of you and you hit that one, or they jump into the side of your vehicle because you've started on. So that's something we want to make sure people are paying attention. If there's one, assume there are more. The next thing is, as you alluded to, is don't swerve. please don't swerve. The reason we say don't swerve is if you swerve into oncoming traffic, it's not going to go well. If you swerve into the ditch or onto the shoulder, you increase your chance that you may lose control, overcorrect, oversteer, or just catch something and roll your vehicle, and now somebody gets hurt as a result of that. If you hit the deer, cars can be fixed, cars can be replaced, and less likely are the chances that you are going to get hurt. Not saying you couldn't, but it's less likely. Most crashes that we have, car deer crashes that we have, are just property damage only. If there are injuries, usually it might be because of an airbag that goes off. But I'll tell you that a lot of times the airbags do not go off if it is not a direct hit with that deer. It could be a glancing blow, or maybe they're just above the bumper where you hit them, and the sensors don't go off, so the airbag might not deploy. But usually it's very minor crashes, so once that happens, if you're able to, if you do hit a deer, pull off the road immediately. Just try to get over onto the shoulder. You don't have to stay out in the middle of the road. If your car's disabled, call 911 and let us know so we can get somebody there quickly. But if you can get off the road, pull off to the side of the road, collect yourself, and then give us a call. We will dispatch out either a deputy or a city officer, if it's in a city, to come on out and take that report. Now, as far as being a reportable crash, if it's just a minor crash, maybe you just hit the mirror off and you think it's going to be under $1,000 of damage, those are not reportable crashes. Reportable crash is if it's $1,000 or more, if there's injury or death. And if none of those occur, there is no requirement that you report that crash to us. However, if you don't report it, and it does become over $1,000, you may have to do an online report in that case. But give us a call. Let us know if you are involved in a crash. If you're not sure, call us. Our dispatchers will walk you through it. We'll probably send somebody out to check on you, and we'll write out that report. But remember, morning time, evening time, dusk and dawn are the times where you're generally going to see them. Not saying you can't see them through the rest of the day or night, but generally that's when they're running the most and we see the most crashes, and our staff get very, very busy. Also coming out soon, Lieutenant Taylor Nails started last year the rut report. It's twofold benefit. One, hunters know when the deer are running, and that's kind of a neat perk because we put it out on our app every day. What the rut report is, kind of how they're running, how many we've seen. And twofold, we remind drivers every day that there are deer running, and now is a really, really intense time when they're running and to be careful. So pretty soon, if you don't have a sheriff's office app on your phone, on your Google or your Apple phone, download it. And we'll send out that rut report once a day, let everybody know, hey, this is what it was like yesterday, and try to keep everybody informed on how the deer are running. And one, maybe somebody can bag a big deer when they're out hunting, or two, maybe they can avoid that deer when they're running crossing the road. But just now is a good time to maybe reduce that speed limit a little bit, especially at dusk and dawn, just to avoid those deer.
You mentioned reportable crashes, a $1,000 damage threshold. Obviously, I would have absolutely no idea if I'm looking at a wreck and thinking, oh yeah, that's clear. Oh, I think clearly you could tell sometimes if it's $1,000. If it's on that fence, I don't know if I could tell. So if you go into the shop, they say, hey, yeah, it's a $1,500 repair, whatever it is, over that $1,000. Is it just calling the sheriff's office or going online? Where do people go to then file that report?
If it's after the fact, you're not immediately reporting it, we're not going to write the crash. So you have to go to the DOT website. Mm-hmm. And the DOT website has a form that'll walk you through what you have to fill out to do that report after the fact. If it's questionable, call us. We'll help you through it. But if it's something where, like I said, it's a mirror that got broken or the antler scratched the paint or something, it's under $1,000. You don't need to report those. But if there's significant damage, usually, if it's a dent to one body part, you might be okay. But if you get two or three of them, you're definitely over $1,000.
We're chatting with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt here on Community Comment today. We do have to take a brief break. More Community Comment is coming up next.
You are listening to Community Comment. Now back to our host, Kevin Haugen.
Well, thank you very much, and a good afternoon. Welcome back into our second segment of Community Comment today. I am joined with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt on the program, and if you have a question for the sheriff, you can call in at 887-9595, or you can text 885-4446. And before we dive into some other topics we want to hit on here today, I got a text from our producer today, Wally. He informed me that our longtime caller, Tyler, does have a question. Didn't call in today, sent in a text apparently, but he wants to know what the scariest thing that you've ever dealt with on the job.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the scariest thing I've had to deal with was before I worked here in Dodge County. I was down in Greene County, and we went to a disturbance. And when we were there, we had, I want to say there was about 20 to 25 somewhat intoxicated individuals, and one that was very resistive. And myself and one other deputy ended up trying to place this individual under arrest for his actions. And he started fighting with us. And this is the only time in my 24-year career that I've ever actually had a fight like that one, where he was punching at us and kicking at us, and we were just trying to get in control of his hands. And while we're doing that, we had about 20, 25 I would say young adults, high school age to young adult age people who were yelling at us, and we're trying to get this individual in custody and remove the disturbance, and we weren't sure if other people were going to jump on us and attack us. So that was probably, for me, the one time that I was the most fearful that something could happen to me as just trying to be out there trying to keep the peace and get this individual into handcuffs. Fortunately, I haven't had a lot of interactions like that throughout my career. Usually, if we had an incident where we had to go hands-on, we were able to usually handle it quickly. But that was about a 2 to 3 minute on the ground trying to get this person into cuffs with a lot of people around us that were watching that we didn't want them to attack us as well.
Again, every time I hear stories from law enforcement, deep down know I could never do the job that you guys put yourselves into every single day. I mean, you never know. A call could end up leading to another situation like that. You just never know what to expect when you're going out and putting on the badge every day and doing this job for your career. And
another one, I've got this medal on my shirt. It's the Medal of Distinction, and that one we were out. Again, this was before I came here, but it was down in Greene County again. I was still in training at the time, and I had two of my partners fell through the river, in the Sugar River, going after an individual that just got into a bar fight right next to it, and they fell in. The subject we were going after fell in, and I pulled all three of them out of the river, and it was frozen. It was about 28 degrees out that day, and my partners and the suspect all fell in the water. Couldn't get one got himself out the first time, but when he fell on the second time, he was in there. And had I not been that third person there in training, I don't know what would have happened, but I was able to grab onto all three of them. I was able to get them all out of the water. And those are the days that it's scary. And we've had incidents like that here in Dodge County. We had a former Corporal, Paul Nell, that fell in the ice out here on Beaver Dam Lake. He went through something very similar. Thankful we had people out there who were able to get him out of the water quickly. But those things are very scary, and was in things that our staff have to be ready for. And you never know when you find yourself in a very dangerous and potentially deadly situation, but we're out here serving the public and doing what we can, doing it as safely as we can, and that's why we train as hard as we train to make sure our staff can handle those types of situations.
We're chatting with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt here on Community Comments. Again, the numbers are 887-9595, or you can text 4446 if you have a question for our guest today here on Community Comments. But back to some pre-planned topics here that we want to highlight on our program today. One of them is peeling and fading license plate numbers. What to do, I'm sure, if this is happening. I'm sure you can't keep driving around if law enforcement can't make out what's on those license plates. So what do we need to know?
So recently, I've had conversations with numerous people about this, and it's a topic that a lot of people really don't know what you're supposed to do. But when you have a license plate and those numbers are starting to fade, you can't see them, they're starting to peel off, you have to get your license plate replaced. You can't get a Sharpie out and color it in. You can't get your nail polish out and color it in with that. That doesn't meet the requirements of the license plates. Actually, it's not all that expensive to do. I forget if it's $7 or $8 is all you need to pay to get a new license plate. Just go down to the DMV and get those license plates and get them put on your vehicle. It is a requirement you do that, because if you can't read them, it's a violation of the law. You can be stopped for that. So we need people to get those replaced. It's unfortunate that the license plates in that batch really started disintegrating the way that they did, but it is what it is. They've got better quality license plates now, and you can get a new license plate relatively inexpensive, and you got to get them put on your cars. Just go down to the DMV, let them know you need one. They'll give you a new one. You're not going to get the same number, though, unless it's a personalized plate, typically. You're not going to get the same number. You will get a new one, but you need to do that. Again, that's a reason for a traffic stop for us, and to avoid that contact, get your plates replaced. Remember, you also have to put both of them on. If you are issued 2 plates, you have to put them both on. If you're issued 1 plate, you only have to put one of them on. So motorcycles, for example, they don't have a front plate, so they only get one. Collector plates are only required to have one. There are some municipal plates that are only required to have one. But most passenger cars, most trucks are issued 2 plates, and if you have them, you are required to put them on your vehicle, whether you like it or not.
When it comes to, you mentioned, if the deputy's driving down the road, they see a car that has fading license plate numbers on it, and that could lead to a traffic stop. Is that something that is initially, if that's the first contact they've had, it's a warning, hey, letting them know what to do, how to get it fixed? I'm sure there's always notes that are put into the system. Mm-hmm. Any subsequent one, where we're looking at traffic citations, traffic tickets, was there any penalties involved if this is not corrected after several conversations with the driver?
Well, it's all going to depend on the circumstances. Yeah. Every law enforcement officer has their guidelines from their agency. Every law enforcement officer has the ability to have discretion as far as what they're going to issue for a citation. If I pull somebody over and they said, yeah, I know it was against the law and I just don't care, and I've left it on there for 4, 5, 6 months because I really don't care, that's intentional. Mm-hmm. And there's a good chance you're going to get a citation out of it. If somebody says, oh, I didn't know that, and we can tell they're being honest with us, and I appreciate you letting me know, and respectful, good chance they're probably going to get, we give out a 10-day warning. You got to go down to the DMV, get that replaced, and then prove that it's been taken care of. It's a lot easier just to go and do it ahead of time. But we do put notes in. If we in our county, if we put in that somebody's been given a warning for that, and then we catch somebody with it 3, 4, 5 weeks later, chances are you're probably going to get a citation for it because you didn't do what you needed to do. So we do have the discretion, and we try not to just issue a citation just for the sake of doing it. But if we've got individuals who are just not complying and intentionally not complying, more apt to end up with a citation in those cases.
Speaking about things that could lead to getting pulled over by law enforcment, driving under the influence. That's near guarantee. If law enforcement sees a vehicle on the road drifting, listing back and forth, on the roadway, they will stop that car. I want to dive into and give you the opportunity to speak to what are deputies seeing when they are looking at making that OWI arrest, and what's the process then after that?
Sure. This is, for most that know me, know that impaired driving has been a focus of my career. I'm a field sobriety test instructor. In fact, I'm a master instructor, meaning I train the trainers in those areas. I'm also a drug recognition expert, and so I have a lot of background on this, and I do a lot of instructing on it. And I thought it might be helpful for the public to know what it is that we are doing out there on the sides of the road, both after you get stopped and we're sitting in our car or during the field sobriety test and give everybody an idea of what a typical OWI stop looks like. So typically, in order to make a traffic stop, we have to have what's called reasonable suspicion that a violation of the law is or is about to occur. And so reasonable suspicion is a very low standard. Beyond a reasonable doubt is what you convict somebody on when you're in a criminal case. That's a very high standard. Reasonable suspicion of a violation of the law is a very low standard. So a reasonable suspicion that they're speeding. We believe that individual is speeding. They're going 10 miles over the speed limit, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. We pull them over. We have that conversation. Their license plate is faded. We pull them over. We have that conversation. We make that approach. We have that contact. We identify that driver. Somebody who is a violator of the law that we identify in that car. Just as a reminder, you must identify yourself to that law enforcement officer, otherwise it's obstructing a law enforcement investigation. So we identify them, we tell them what's going on, we have a short conversation, and we have about a 2 to 3 minute conversation with that driver, and it's where do you live, sometimes it might be where you're coming from, so maybe some short casual conversation, pleasantries. During that initial conversation, we're doing more than just collecting driver's license information and phone number. We are looking around in that car, seeing is there alcohol in the car? Can we smell anything? Is that person fumbling and fidgeting through? When we ask for the driver's license, do they hand us a credit card? That has happened. When you smell that alcohol, we might ask them a couple questions about if they've been drinking or not. I remember one that I stopped over on Woodland Road, and I asked him if he'd been drinking, and he said, yes, absolutely. And I said, what have you been drinking? Captain. I said, oh, Captain and Coke? No, just Captain. I said, Captain on the rocks? He said, no, just Captain. I said, okay, very good. Sit tight, I'll be with you in just a few minutes. Those are what we call clues. He had the odor of alcohol on his breath. He had bloodshot and glassy eyes, and slurred speech. I don't remember if he fumbled through his license, but I've had plenty of others that have fumbled through their license. We'll go back to our cars. We'll run their driver's license. Do they have one prior? Do they have 5 priors? That depends. That makes a big impact on us as far as what are we looking for now. Yeah. If they have 5 priors, they're now a .02 driver. They're not a .08 driver like the rest of the motoring public, and that's a big deal to us because now, did they have a shot of brandy, or did they have Captain and on the rocks, or whatever it is, or did they have one beer? That might be enough to get us to the O2, where somebody else might need 2 or 3 of them to get them there. So those are things we're looking for. We check to see what their driving status is. Are they a valid driver? When we're done with that, and we check their criminal history to see if they've got any other violations in other states. Those are the things that we're doing while we're in the car and you're waiting for us to come back. We also probably are going to start our paperwork in those cases and things while we're waiting for that information to come back. But then I go back and I talk to the driver. And here again, we've had some very interesting conversations. I've had people come out of the car. I've had people fall out of the car. I've had them hold on to the car as they're walking back. I remember one lady on Highway 26 near Highway A south of Juneau. She got out and she tried to give me a big hug. And we've had other videos where they've peed their pants. On video. I mean, these are things that really happen on the sides of the road. Yeah. I had one individual during field sobriety tests. He wasn't wearing a belt, and as he's doing the walk and turn, which I'll get into shortly, his pants fell down. These are all clues and things that we really see on the sides of the road. He picked them back up right away, but it's not something that normally you allow it to happen, is for your pants to fall down while you're walking. So we get them out, we walk them to the back of the car. Or the back of their car, and we ask them some additional questions, and then we start, and we have 3 standard tests that we have every person do if they're able to. There's the horizontal gaze nystagmus test is the first one, the walk and turn test, and the one-leg stand. The first one, we call it the HGN for short. We're looking for nystagmus in your eyes. It's the involuntary jerkingness of the eyes. So as I'm moving my pen, my stimulus we call it, past your eyes, we're looking for jerking in the eyes. And somebody who's intoxicated, and next time you go out safely and you're having a few drinks, you might want to just hold it out to the side, take a pen and hold it out to your peripheral, and you will feel your eye jerk back and forth. Now, you're not going to be able to see what we see, but you're going to be. That's kind of what we are looking for. And there's 6 different clues there that we're looking for. And if we get 4 clues, it's a high probability that that person is impaired. Then we move on to the walk and turn test. We have them walk a straight line, heel to toe, turn and come back. We have a series of instructions. There's 8 clues there. If you show us 2 clues, there's a high probability that your ability to operate a vehicle is impaired. Then with the last one leg stand, we have you stand with your leg raised about 6 inches off the ground. 4 clues. If we see 2 of those clues, again, a high probability that your ability to drive is impaired. Now I hear all the time, I couldn't do these sober, Sheriff. I can tell you, I have done these thousands of times as an instructor. We understand sometimes people have some disabilities, and we take those into consideration. Most people are able to do these tests and do them fairly well. And we have a lot of people who do the tests that pass the test, and they're not arrested. So they are standardized, they're systematic, they've gone through a vetting process across the country. They're done the exact same way by every law enforcement officer across the country, and they are standard, they are reliable. But then we don't just take 1 or 2 or 3 of those tests to make our decision. We take a look at the entire totality of it. Were they speeding? Were they swerving? Did they hand me their credit card? Did they give me a hug when they got out? Did they stumble as they're walking? Their speech, the tests, we take all of that into consideration. And none of them are pass-fail tests. It's an entire totality of the circumstances, and we make a decision. Are they impaired? Do we believe they're above that standard? And if they are, we make that arrest. We take them in for a blood draw. If they refuse the blood draw, many times we'll get a warrant for that blood draw. And then everybody in Dodge County, at the sheriff's office anyway, gets booked into the Dodge County jail. They get their photos taken, they get fingerprints taken, and then either they stay there for 12 hours or they can be released to a responsible person. But that's, in a nutshell, an OWI process from start to finish. And we have one deputy that I thought I made a lot back in the day, making 30 or 40 in a year. We have one deputy who 2 years in a row made 96 and 97 arrests in 1 year. So that number has come down, and we've seen positive success, but in trying to limit the amount of impaired drivers. But there's a lot of impaired drivers out there that we have to work on. And I thought I'd just give everybody a little bit of a taste of what it's like for us to investigate an impaired driving arrest.
I know one of the other initiatives that your office has done, and it's every Wednesday that these go up. It's the Facebook posts that highlight recent OWI arrests in the county. And I know a lot of people say, like, how can you put up mug shots of people? Those are all open record. Those are all following, as you have pointed out to us here on the show in the past, that those are all open records. Those are all, obviously everybody's innocent until proven guilty. But have you noticed anybody, even during an arrest that you made, to say, oh man, I know what you're doing if I'm arrested for OWI? Do you feel like that's an initiative that has helped, or just is more or less shining a light on this problem? So maybe somebody else who sees this is like, well, maybe I shouldn't have that 4th drink and then get behind the wheel and drive home.
Well, I've had people tell me that I don't drink as much when I go out and then get behind the wheel of a car. I have people tell me that regularly. I've had bartenders who work at bars in areas just outside the county that I've been at, and I've heard them say, when you leave, don't drive in Dodge County because you don't want to get caught in Dodge County. That makes an impact. That means people are talking about it. Yeah, people don't like it. The Supreme Court has held that I can publish our record, and I am publishing the record of the arrest. Yes, I understand they're not convicted. Every post you'll see, innocent until proven guilty, but it is a record of our arrest. And that record of our arrest is a permanent record. It does not go away. I've had people call me and say, can you take it off of social media? No, I cannot, because that also is a permanent record of the arrest that I can't delete by law. So I understand people don't like that philosophy, but I'll tell you 2 quick stories about why I do this. Number 1 was a wrong-way driver on 151 up near the cemetery north of Beaver Dam. and that wrong way driver struck another driver. Both of those individuals had alcohol in their system. Both of them were likely impaired, and both of them died. I had friends drove by, saw the crash, and I had to give notification on the scene of one of those individuals in the median of the highway because they knew that it was their friend's car. I had the fiance of that same driver get a hold of me and send me a picture of her holding her deceased fiance's picture on their wedding day when they were supposed to get married. And she learned about him passing away, and she was out east. The next one was a few short days later. We had an individual who was driving while impaired on Highway E near Swan Road. He struck, it was a 3-vehicle crash. I believe it was 7 people that were injured and 1 fatality. And he was convicted, went to the appeals court, lost, and that conviction was upheld. Those were the 2 incidents of the many incidents that I've seen where an impaired driver has permanently changed the lives of others because someone was lost to their senseless choice. And some people say, well, alcoholism is a disease. Well, it can be, but the choice to get behind the wheel of a car is not. I just got an award from MAD last week. I just did some legislative changes, and the award isn't important here, but I was up there at the ceremony, and we had a 50-year-old woman who had 1 leg. She was struck by a drunk driver. That drunk driver, after striking her, fled the scene and left her for dead. And she stood up there pleading with people to please not get behind the wheel of a car and drive. It completely changed her life. She's not letting it take her life from her. She's empowered, and she's preaching now because of all of this. But watching her struggle to get up, she had no left hip and no left leg. Watching her walk up on crutches and thinking about how one bad decision to get behind the wheel of a vehicle while impaired has permanently disfigured her to the fact to now she has 1 appendage leg that she's able to get around on. Those things happen every day, and frankly, I'm tired of it. And if individuals are going to continue to put other people's lives at risk, there are going to be consequences.
It's an ongoing fight that I'm sure that there are positives that will be gained, but I feel that's going to be one it's a long haul fight, that it's something that's not going to change overnight. But it seems, Sheriff, that again, you had mentioned that this is a priority focus for you here as Sheriff of Dodge County, that you will not rest until you can improve those numbers when it comes to OWI arrests and crashes as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely, it's very very personal for me, and I've seen a lot of people's families just ripped apart and destroyed because somebody made a poor decision.
We're chatting with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt here on Community Comment today. We just have a couple of more minutes here on our program, and we just have a couple of topics we just want to get to before we say goodbye to our guests here on Community Comment today. One of those is a upcoming hiring event at the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, what do we need to know with that event?
So I believe it's next week, Tuesday. I give you the date, the 22nd, I believe it was. We are having a hiring event at the Sheriff's Office. Yes, it's the 22nd, Tuesday the 22nd from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're having a walk-in interview type day for individuals interested in joining our corrections team. Our jail staff are fantastic, and we've got a couple more positions that we're looking to fill. We're doing really well on staffing, and we're looking to get those filled as quickly as possible because we're looking at some retirements next year. And if we can get full before we have retirements, it's less impactful. So we're having a recruitment day. We've got a great admin team working in the jail, a clean facility. You think about jails, you think about prisons and dark dungeons, not ours. We get complimented from our inspectors, our local inspectors, national inspectors on our jail all the time. Our maintenance staff does a fantastic job of keeping it looking bright, clean, and it really is a wonderful environment. So we're looking forward to having people in from 8 to 4 on Tuesday the 22nd. If you're interested in that career, maybe you're interested in a career change, come on in. We can probably find some time to show you around in the jail briefly. we're looking at some pretty decent wages, some decent benefits, but overall just an awesome culture that we have at the sheriff's office. So if you're interested in perhaps taking a look and seeing if it's something you might be interested in, 8 to 4 on Tuesday, just stop in at the jail. You can fill out the application there. We'll have you come in, do an interview right away, get that process rolling. We'd love to get you on board as quickly as possible. Of course, we got to do background and things like that after the fact, but we're really trying to get those last, I think it's 3 or 4 positions that we've got that are open right now filled, so that we have a full staff for the few retirements we got coming next year.
And people can head to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, your app, or your website to get more information about the openings and jobs within the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, and go to the employee section or the we're hiring, I think, on the top of the website, and we'll have more information out on our social media app on this event coming shortly. But we welcome anybody to come and take a look.
Fantastic. And one last topic here we want to briefly spend a moment discussing here before we wrap up our program today, and that's another round of applause to all the agencies that participated in the rally that was held at the Dodge County Airport in Juneau when Donald Trump came to Dodge County and held a campaign rally here in our county. Sheriff, we just want to spend a few moments just thanking everyone that took part in preparing and executing that safety plan for that event.
Yeah, regardless of who it was that was coming, whether you like him or not, the work that went in by the Secret Service to all of the law enforcement agencies that assisted, to our staff, our admin team did a fantastic job putting it all together, and just kudos to all of them for all of their work. When I talked to the Secret Service as they were on the way out, they told me this was one of the best, if not the best, security that they have seen at an event across the country, which is pretty incredible. It says a lot for our staff. Makes me worried a little bit about what they're doing around the rest of the country, because we just did it right. We didn't go extravagant, but we did exactly what needed to be done. As they were getting out, the Secret Service was getting out of my car to get on to leave. He said, "Well, we'll see you soon." And I said, "Yeah, I hope not, but it's been fun." But it was quite an experience for our staff, and very proud that I was able to leave the event to take part in the motorcade and know that everything was going to go off without a hitch because of the great team that we put in place at the Sheriff's Office, our admin team, to our frontline staff. The culture we've been able to build has been nothing short of amazing with our staff.
One more thing we want to hit on is an interesting story that you sort of shared with me, but I want to give our audience an opportunity to listen to this. Obviously, you said everything went off without a hitch, but for you, Sheriff, who took part in the motorcade, was crucial in planning that safety route and getting Donald Trump from the airport in Madison to Dodge County. There was a point in that route, I believe, both there and back, where you thought things weren't going to go very smoothly.
Right, and it didn't have anything to do with any of the planning.
Correct.
First of all, excuse me, there was no helicopter. There was a helicopter, but there was no landing of a helicopter by President Trump. That was solely a motorcade. So on the way up here, we get about to the Sun Prairie-ish area, and we're cruising along. Things are going well. All the planning is going well. Communication is going great. And all of a sudden, I have some of you with pressure sensors on your vehicle know what happens when you get a flat tire. My pressure sensor went off, and I'm starting to get bells and whistles on my dashboard, and I have the Secret Service sitting next to me, and I said, "Oh, this isn't good," I said, I better not be falling out of the motorcade here, and he told me, "Go as long as you can, but if you have to, you're going to have to pull out of the motorcade and let him go." Mm-hmm. And I told him, "Okay, but it's going to be the fastest NASCAR-type change of a tire you've ever seen in uniform." But it never went flat. And made it all the way to Juneau, sweating it out, thinking I'm in a motorcade, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm going to get a flat tire right now. Are you kidding? And I did remember on the way down there, I hit something I didn't see in the road. I felt it, and I was thinking, did I hit something, and am I getting a flat? Made it to Juneau, all good. I got there and turned the vehicle off, turned it back on. The pressure sensors were fine, had no issue. So I'm thinking it's just a fluke with the sensor, no big deal. We heading back down to Madison to take them back down there. We got about halfway there, maybe not even halfway there. They went off again. And this time, the first time it was all 4 of them. So I knew something was a little hinky. This time it was just 1. I'm like, what's going on here? And I get a little bit further down the road, and then the whole system went haywire. I'm like, this just isn't right. And Secret Service guy and I are talking, and I said, Ford and I are going to have a conversation tomorrow about this. This isn't good. We get to the airport. I drop him off, and it hits me. I figured out what it was. I didn't say anything. Sheriff Brandner from Columbia was also in the motorcade. I got out. I mentioned it to him. He said, it happened to me too. There is a vehicle in the motorcade that I become very familiar with called the cornerback. The cornerback is a vehicle that jams signals, electrical signals in the air to keep the person they're protecting safe. So radio frequencies, unless it's pre-programmed in, and other technology, it will jam all of those things. It was jamming my pressure sensors on my squad car. As soon as I got away from the cornerback, everything was fine. I haven't had a problem with it since. So, moral of the story is, if you ever have the opportunity to be in a motorcade and your pressure sensors go, not saying your tire might not be going flat, but there's a good chance the cornerback is shutting you down.
Well, on that note, I want to thank our guest here on Community Comment today, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. Sheriff, thank you again so much for joining us here on Community Comment.
Always a pleasure. Be safe. It is Halloween.
And that will do it for today's Community Comment.